The silence that had gripped King Charles for decades finally shattered. "I hated her!" The words tore through the palace halls, reverberating like a storm crashing against the ancient walls, shaking even the most stoic of courtiers. Years of buried resentment, long concealed behind royal protocol and shadowed decorum, now erupted with raw intensity. Trembling with a mix of fury and anguish, the king's voice exposed a truth that had been simmering beneath the surface, hidden from the world, but now impossible to contain. The air was thick with tension, every syllable crackling like fire on dry kindling. A tidal wave of controversy ignited across the royal fold. Decades of suppressed emotion surged like molten lava breaking through the crust, fierce, unrelenting, and unstoppable. Who had provoked such venom? What secret force had driven this composed, regal figure to the brink of a personal abyss? Step by step, layer by layer, we peel back the veils to uncover the shocking reality behind King Charles's explosive admission, one that reshapes everything we thought we knew about the crown, the past, and the man himself. It all began, as whispered in hushed tones through royal corridors, with a fleeting encounter. The first meeting between Charles and Princess Diana is often romanticized, a lavish gathering, orchestrated by Diana's charismatic older sister Sarah, designed to catch the eyes of destiny itself. Yet Charles's own account paints a very different picture, a quieter, more ambiguous beginning in a setting far removed from the glittering parties and the glamour of rumors. Diana was only 16, shy, reserved, a girl still finding herself in a world she barely understood. Charles, already a figure of public fascination in his late 20s, was drawn instead to the confident, outgoing Sarah, whose charms had already established her as a force in his life. The gap between Diana's youth and Charles's maturity hung like a thin, almost tangible veil. Even so, Diana's warmth and unguarded energy tugged at something in him that could not be denied. For a brief flicker, Charles's loyalty wavered. The connection he felt to this young girl was a subtle, unspoken intrigue. But the flicker was brief, snuffed out almost immediately as he remained tethered to Sarah. Shortly after, Charles and Sarah were swept into the public eye on a high-profile skiing holiday. Photographs captured them skiing side by side, their smiles bright beneath the winter sun, the press heralding them as a flawless, predestined couple. Stories of an impending engagement flew across newspapers like wildfire, cementing Sarah's position as the supposed future queen consort. Yet behind the public spectacle, the truth remained hidden in shadows, quietly waiting for its moment to surface. Then came a private, unexpected moment that changed everything. At one of Sarah's elegant gatherings, Charles and Diana found themselves alone, an encounter orchestrated by something beyond human design. Fate, perhaps? Or sheer coincidence. Diana led him through the gallery of her home, their conversation flowing effortlessly, almost wordlessly, natural as breathing. Her kindness, her vitality, and an unexpected fervour for life etched themselves into Charles's consciousness. The attraction was immediate, undeniable, yet complicated, still restrained by his lingering ties to Sarah. In that quiet, fleeting space, a seed of curiosity was planted in his heart, one that would quietly grow into something much larger. Diana herself felt the weight of the encounter, overwhelmed, honoured, and trembling under the gaze of a man far older, of power and allure. She sensed something forbidden stirring between them. Yet the entanglement of loyalties, the looming presence of Sarah, and the vast chasm of royal expectations kept the possibility of romance in the realm of distant fantasy. Then, in a twist no one could predict, Sarah, confident, radiant, seemingly untouchable, walked away. In a blunt, cold magazine interview, she declared she harboured no feelings for Charles and had no intention of pursuing royal life. The public reeled, stunned, as weeks of staged perfection collapsed in a single devastating blow. Freed from obligation, Charles's attention pivoted to Diana, once a shadow of memory, now glowing in a new, impossible light. The age difference, a full 12 years, hung like mist between them. Diana's innocence, her raw, unpolished charm, stood in sharp contrast to the rigid, scrutinized world of the monarchy. Charles, driven by a mixture of intrigue and desire, pursued her despite the risk. Each meeting, each encounter, piled tension higher, watched carefully by a royal family trained to spot talent, charm, and potential scandal. Diana shone under their gaze, a hidden gem untarnished by the world, and slowly the bond grew, unstoppable and intoxicating. The relationship escalated to a dazzling public proposal. Their wedding, a spectacle blending opulence, tradition, and global attention, captivated millions. Diana stepped forth in her iconic gown, a fairy tale princess for the world to admire. Charles, ever composed, masked the undercurrents of doubt and detachment behind a veneer of devotion. The public celebrated the union, blind to the subtle fissures already forming, cracks like fractures in an ancient marble statue. During the engagement interview, the first signs of strain became visible. Diana's words radiated hope and love, open and sincere. Charles's response? Cold, indifferent, distant, a chilling echo of the truth that simmered beneath the surface. As the wedding approached, the shadow of Camilla Parker Bowles emerged. Diana discovered that Charles had secretly sent her a gift, a quiet reminder that his heart still lingered elsewhere. The revelation struck her like a dagger, yet family counsel and public expectation forced her to continue. She walked down the aisle, unaware of the private battles looming ahead. Royal life hit Diana like a relentless storm, constant scrutiny, the burden of perfection, and the suffocating gaze of the media pressed down upon her, leaving no space for personal grief. Charles, for his part, remained emotionally tied to Camilla, the bond never fully severed. Diana's intuition sensed every lingering connection, each whisper of desire that belonged to someone else. Rumours of the affair spread like wildfire, no longer deniable, and Diana, unable to endure the silence, voiced her pain publicly, even confronting Camilla directly. Yet Camilla remained unyielding, a steadfast barrier that neither pleading nor despair could break. The scandal escalated. A secret phone call, intimate and revealing, leaked to the public, confirming what had long been suspected. Charles had never truly let go of Camilla. The confession hit like a lightning strike, tearing through Diana's world. Charles stepped forward, publicly admitting the affair, and Diana, with grace and fury, shared her side in a now legendary interview. Millions witnessed her pain, recognizing the betrayal of a princess trapped in a nightmare she could not have foreseen when she whispered, "I do." What had begun as a dream, a fairy tale romance, crumbled into a mosaic of heartbreak, betrayal, and crushing pressure. The invisible walls erected by Camilla remained impenetrable. Diana's hopes that her children could mend the gap between her and Charles dissolved into a distant mirage. Her dreams, once bright with the promise of love and family, were now shadows of reality, as Charles's enduring bond with his past overshadowed the fragile present. Royal life, dazzling on the surface, revealed its true nature, a labyrinth of unyielding duties, relentless public scrutiny, and invisible chains that left no room to grieve, no space to heal. Diana's fantasy of love, family, and royal bliss had collapsed under the weight of truth. The veil of secrecy lifted, exposing Charles's affair with Camilla, cutting like a merciless blade through the illusions she had once held dear. The princess fantasy, glittering from the outside, had become a trap, a maze of expectations, demands, and the constant gaze of a world that refused to look away. The raw, painful truth remained. Charles's heart had never fully belonged to Diana. Camilla's presence, persistent and ghost-like, constructed an unbreakable wall between them, leaving Diana trapped in a life she could neither command nor escape. Every expectation, every smile, every public gesture masked the agony beneath, and Diana was left to navigate a world where the cameras never blinked, where private wounds were always on display, and where royal life, for all its beauty, became a labyrinth of betrayal, heartbreak, and unending scrutiny. Behind the poised smile and the elegant public appearances, Diana wore a mask that concealed a storm raging within. Every graceful bow, every wave to the crowd, every carefully measured word hid the growing anxiety and heartbreak that twisted inside her. Camilla wasn't just a memory, a ghost lingering in Charles's past. She was a living, breathing presence that clung stubbornly, refusing to leave. And no matter how fiercely Diana tried to capture Charles's devotion, every attempt seemed to scatter like petals caught in a gusting wind. She pleaded, confronted, and implored, searching for a glimpse of the man she had married, desperate to understand why he maintained a cold, almost icy distance. But Charles, torn between his obligations as a husband and the invisible tether connecting him to Camilla, could not, or would not, bridge the gap. Diana's efforts were met with indifference, leaving her anguish to simmer, a fire that grew hotter with every passing day. Tension between them became impossible to ignore, an open wound of emotion that could no longer be hidden behind royal protocol. And of course, the press noticed. The media descended like predators, starved for drama. Cameras captured every moment of Diana's visible strain, the trembling hands at gala events, the fleeting sadness in her eyes, the polite smile that could never mask a broken heart. Rumours raced through tabloids like wildfire. Every glance, every subtle gesture, every whispered conversation was dissected, analysed, and broadcast worldwide. Stories of betrayal, heartbreak, and marital collapse dominated headlines. Public fascination reached fever pitch as the once perfect image of royalty cracked before millions of eyes. The inevitable reckoning came. When the truth could no longer be contained, the royal family was thrown into chaos. To quell the media storm, Charles stepped in front of cameras, publicly confessing his affair with Camilla. The carefully curated image of the dutiful, devoted prince shattered in a heartbeat. Diana, humiliated on a global stage, was left alone amid the wreckage of her dignity, her heart exposed for the world to witness. The heartbreak became a tragedy of global proportions. Public opinion swirled with conflicting emotions. Some condemned Charles for his betrayal. Others sympathized with a man trapped by duty and unfulfilled desire. Diana, meanwhile, was seen as the human face of suffering, a soul trapped in a gilded cage of expectation and betrayal. Her candidness about her struggles made her relatable in ways the monarchy had never intended. Diana's vulnerability extended beyond heartbreak. She openly discussed her battle with bulimia, revealing the private scars that had developed under the unrelenting stress of her marriage and the suffocating scrutiny of the public eye. Her courage in sharing these intimate battles broke the traditional image of royal perfection, exposing a real person behind the crown. The world witnessed not a flawless princess, but a woman confronting deep human pain with honesty and resilience. By 1992, the inevitable separation had been formalized. Charles and Diana were living apart, the cracks in their union too wide to repair. 4 years later, in 1996, their divorce was finalized. A chapter steeped in tragedy closed, yet Diana refused to be defeated by heartbreak. Instead, she transformed her suffering into purpose. Using her fame and platform, she championed humanitarian causes others shied away from, raising awareness and action for the marginalized and vulnerable. Diana's work was groundbreaking. She used her voice to fight for HIV/AIDS awareness, bringing dignity and compassion to a cause mired in stigma. She raised attention for landmine removal, children's welfare, and mental health initiatives. Through her relentless advocacy, she became known as the People's Princess, connecting with ordinary people on a deeply human level. Even amid personal heartbreak, she carved out a legacy of courage, empathy, and activism that would endure beyond her lifetime. While Diana's life evolved into a crusade for the voiceless, Charles's heart remained tethered to the past. Camilla Parker Bowles's connection to him stretched back long before Diana entered his life. Their bond, known to aristocratic circles, had begun decades earlier, long before public scrutiny. Before Andrew Parker Bowles, Camilla's first husband, Charles and Camilla, had already woven a complicated history, marked by attraction, separation, and reunions that neither time nor circumstance could erase. Camilla met Andrew in the late 1960s through his younger brother Simon, who worked at her father's wine firm in Mayfair. Andrew, a lieutenant in the Blues and Royals, carried aristocratic prestige and a reputation that drew many to his orbit. Camilla and Andrew's bond grew steadily, and their engagement was publicly announced in 1973, though the timing appeared influenced by family pressures. Their wedding took place on July 4, 1973, and the couple went on to have 2 children, Tom, born December 18, 1974, who would become King Charles's godson, and Laura. Despite her husband's Catholic upbringing, Camilla remained Anglican, preserving her faith and independence within the family. Years passed, and cracks in Camilla's marriage to Andrew emerged. By the early 1990s, the strain was undeniable. They began divorce proceedings in December 1994, finalized by March 1999. Andrew moved on, and that chapter of Camilla's life closed, but her story with Charles was far from over. Their paths had first crossed formally in mid-1971, introduced by mutual friend Lucia Santa Cruz. Unlike the public assumption of a polo match encounter, their bond ignited in private, in the intimacy of Camilla's home, where shared interests and mutual backgrounds created a spark that neither could ignore. Charles was eventually welcomed into Camilla's family home in Plumpton, and Camilla became part of his social circles. Despite early separations due to his naval service in 1973, their friendship endured, and whispers of a rekindled romance persisted into the 1980s. Even as Charles married Diana, the invisible thread connecting him to Camilla remained, a presence impossible to erase. As Diana's marriage unraveled, the tension between Charles and Camilla became a public spectacle, a drama scrutinized by the press and debated by the public. Extramarital affairs, whispered alliances, and the inexorable pull of past love made the royal household a center of intrigue. Ultimately, the marriage could not survive the combined weight of secrecy, betrayal, and relentless scrutiny, culminating in divorce. In the aftermath, Diana's untimely death in 1997 temporarily shifted public attention, allowing Camilla to step back from the limelight. But time moved forward, and the bond between Charles and Camilla persisted, culminating in their engagement announcement on February 10, 2005. The news sparked global attention, raising complex questions of duty, legacy, and public perception. As future head of the Church of England, Charles's union with a divorcee required careful handling. Approval from the Queen, the government, and the Church cleared the way, reflecting the delicate balance of tradition and personal desire. Their civil ceremony took place on April 9, 2005, at Windsor Guildhall. Notably, their parents were absent, a reflection of lingering tensions and past histories. Camilla's son, Tom Parker Bowles, and Charles's eldest son, Prince William, stood as witnesses. Upon marriage, Camilla assumed the title Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Cornwall, declining Princess of Wales out of respect for Diana's enduring public memory. Time passed, and on September 8, 2022, the death of Queen Elizabeth II elevated Charles to the throne. Camilla's title evolved with him, and she became Queen Consort, initially styled Her Majesty, the Queen Consort, to distinguish her from the late sovereign. Here's a fully rewritten, extended and dramatic version of your third piece ending, keeping all your original events intact, expanding naturally, and adding flair, suspense, and street-smart style. Original word count, approximately 150, to rewritten, approximately 650 plus. I've also included a natural CTA at the end. The title itself spoke volumes. Camilla, unwaveringly supportive beside King Charles III, standing apart from the monarch who had reigned for 7 remarkable decades. Her journey into public acceptance was anything but simple. At first, the spotlight brought scrutiny, whispers, and judgment, yet she weathered each storm with quiet resilience. Over time, the controversies that once seemed insurmountable gradually softened in the public's eyes, her image evolving from scandal-adjacent outsider to a figure of measured influence within the royal fold. Every challenge she faced became a stepping stone, a marker of her survival, her adaptability, and her uncanny ability to navigate the treacherous waters of royal life. What had once sparked outrage and debate slowly transformed into an accepted, almost inevitable reality. To truly understand why Charles remained steadfast in his choice, we must rewind to the man he had become before the weight of love, loss, and duty ever fell upon his shoulders. His early years in the armed forces, The rigorous training and the discipline of naval life sculpted not just a sense of duty, but an iron will that would later guide him through decades of personal and public storms. These formative experiences instilled resilience, a quiet determination, and a sense of responsibility that shaped every decision, especially those concerning matters of the heart. Charles learned early that loyalty was both a shield and a burden. Every mission, every assignment, every command reinforced the notion that the crown and duty often demanded sacrifices far greater than the ordinary world could fathom. Camilla's presence in his later life, her steadiness, her understanding of the pressures he faced, and her patience mirrored that very resilience. Unlike fleeting admirations or ephemeral affections, her loyalty endured the tests of time, gossip, and public scrutiny. She became a silent anchor, a steady presence in the unpredictable currents of royal life, one that Charles could depend on when the world seemed ready to tilt at him from every direction. As the decades passed, Camilla's transformation mirrored a subtle metamorphosis of perception. What was once a scandalous attachment whispered about in the tabloids became a quietly acknowledged truth, and eventually a source of stability. Each official engagement, each appearance, each demonstration of solidarity beside Charles chipped away at the skepticism of the public and the guarded royal circle alike. She had mastered the delicate balance of prominence without intrusion, influence without overreach, and support without replacing or overshadowing the memory of those who had come before. Her journey wasn't just about survival, it was about strategy, patience, and an almost intuitive understanding of royal etiquette. Camilla moved carefully, always aware of the long shadow cast by Diana, and the lingering sentiments of a global audience still mourning the people's princess. Her ability to adapt, to remain poised amidst relentless scrutiny, gradually earned her recognition not only within the palace walls, but also among the public, many of whom began to see her as a partner who complemented Charles rather than competed with his past. Every trial, every public controversy, every whisper of dissent became a milestone in Camilla's path toward acceptance. And through it all, Charles's decision never wavered. His early training, the discipline of his youth, the understanding of duty and responsibility, and the enduring connection with Camilla all reinforced a truth that was unshakable. Some bonds, once forged, withstand the trials of time, scandal, and expectation. So, as we stand today, witnessing Camilla's respected position beside King Charles III, it's clear that her journey was far from easy. But every challenge she overcame paved the way for her present role. The evolution of her public image, from contentious outsider to accepted queen consort, was not just about patience, but also about courage, strategy, and the unspoken power of quiet loyalty. If you want to uncover more secrets of the royal family and see how loyalty, scandal, and power intertwine across generations, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to stay connected with the most untold stories from the palace.